Greetings, Star Citizens, and welcome back to Flight Deck Episode 2. With you as before is Paper Thin and Link Static MDK. I'm Link Static MDK, and will be your regular host for the majority of time we are doing Flight Deck. Uh, Briefly, a little bit about the show for people that are new. We talk largely about Star Citizen. It's an online space simulation MMO game that's coming out by Cloud Imperium Games. It's designed by the person who originally was behind Wing Commander. For those of you who know, that's Chris Roberts. A little bit about topics we covered last week. We talked a bit on just overall gameplay and our thoughts, flight controls, 325A impressions, the Redeemer, cutlasses, the big Star Citizen Admirers manual that came out last week, a bunch about video games and a bunch about anime that weren't Star Citizen, as well as some upcoming updates that were down the pipeline, including the Idris, some new star systems, as well as PAX Australia, which should be coming up towards the end of this week. One of the first things we wanted to get into talking about today is the 325A. As we talked about, it was released last week, and there were some less than stellar reviews for some of the performance and handling that people were experiencing. Paper Thin, I know you have a 325A. You want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah, it's so I've flown it a couple times and it's sluggish in its turning. Um it's really fast in a straight line and which is really nice. It gives it a little bit of a different feel to the Hornet in that respect. But it it turns like a sailboat. It's just really slow, and it you have to take really wide angles to turn, and even using the afterburners to try and negate some of that still isn't all that great. And I think and I don't think I know that they're gonna probably enhance the performance of it a little bit. It sounds like Chris Roberts wasn't thrilled with the performance of it either.
So,
So
so
yeah.
do you think that's part of the new turning mechanic that recently came out too, where they're trying to make turns more realistic, or could that play a role into why it's feeling sluggish in the turns? They didn't quite
That could
adjust for it.
Yeah, that could very well be part of it, and I still don't think they quite have a grasp on the overall speeds of the ship. I didn't think they realized how speed affects turning radius. So the faster you're going, obviously, the bigger your turning radius is going to be, well, you're going to need more thrust to turn faster, right? So having not as many maneuver thrusters as say the Hornet, then you're going faster. That compounds to the turning radius problem that the 325A has, in my opinion.
Well, I don't own a 300, but when they had that free week, I tried out the 300i when
Yeah,
it was available. I was not a fan of the turn radius to begin with on the ship compared to my Hornet.
right.
And like from looking from an external view, it looks like most of the thrusters are on the back end instead of like evenly distributed like they are on the Hornet too. So that probably affects its overall like turn rate and so forth.
That's probably true. Yeah. I mean, up and down, it doesn't feel as bad. It's more, side to side, or if, you're trying to flip on your axis and then pull, in one direction. But yeah, I think that's a good point. It flies fairly similar to the 300i. I've flown both, so.
Well, are there difference between the thrusters? Like, is it just a different model thruster, or are there actually more like thrusters on it?
That's a good question. I don't think there's any difference right now. I could be wrong. That's a really good question. But I'm pretty sure the only thing that's different about them, well, there might be more maneuver thrusters on the 325A now that I think about it. I think there's like two more.
Oh,
And yeah, I'd
a-
have to look.
anybody who's an expert can leave it in the comments below too. Um,
Right.
well, other than that, I mean, will this come out with the patch that they've announced later this week? It's 13.2, which for us is version 0.9.2. Is that going to be with this patch, or is it going to be in a later patch or a hotfix later on? Or
My understanding is it was going to be part of this patch. At least Chris Roberts wanted it to be a part of this patch. So we'll see. I mean, from what it sounds like, this patch is mostly going to be like bug fixes and changing the performance of the ships and in a balance pass, essentially, is another way to describe that, and tweaking the controls, which is probably the biggest thing everybody's going to be interested in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when it comes to a lot of the control schemes, you're going to have to balance all the thrusters and all that stuff anyway, so it makes sense that they would then take that into account with a patch update to fix flight controls and targeting, etc. So it would
Yeah,
make sense to put
yeah,
it together.
yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I think that is probably their thought process on this.
Well, one of the other things that like has been announced, just getting away from the control scheme a little bit, is they're talking about more user-created content, reputation. So, you could have different reputations with, pirates, militaries, civilian organizations, etc. Um, so, with that in mind, I wonder if there's going to also be reputation that you can have with organizations too. Maybe not like in an official capacity. It's probably all going to be behind the scenes since it's player controlled.
Oh, you mean like player controlled organizations? Like you could have a reputation with them, like a reputation score?
Right. So like you can do stuff that benefits them without ever actually interacting with the players, so that like if you do meet one of them, they can go, "Oh wow, this guy's got a plus 20 to my organization's reputation. He's helped us out in the past. That's cool." Or this guy's minus 20 and I don't like him all of a sudden.
Right. I think that would be really interesting. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, I can see some good to it where it would give you a better instant reaction to someone. It's like, okay, well, they're a mercenary, but they've worked for a lot of our rivals instead of us, and we didn't know that. That kind of thing.
Well, I mean, and presumably you're going to be a member of NPC controlled organizations or organizations that exist in the world in the verse like UEE and etc. So, assuming you run into another player who's got like a super negative UEE reputation and you've got a super positive, it'd kind of be weird for you two then to get along and interact really well.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I imagine I'd be surprised if they implemented reputations outside of just how you affect NPC organizations, like more like traditional MMOs like World of Warcraft or the
Right.
others that I've played, where your reputation only matters for the NPC organization, so to speak. I'd be surprised if they branched out from that.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. It seems like a lot of effort for little return, frankly.
Yeah,
One, I don't know, but I do like the fact that they've made the game so user-created content friendly. Like they always have the things that come out, hey, we need some ideas for a drink, or we need some ideas for a company, and all this stuff. And so they'll let people submit and then vote on it and decide, you know, what's the best idea from there.
right. And I really, really like that, especially with like cosmetic stuff. It makes the community more engaged, and it takes away a lot of the kind of the boring day-to-day detail stuff that CIG would need to do, and they could focus on other things instead.
Well, and it's also outsourcing a ton of work for them too, because it's like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and all of a sudden we've got, thousands more employees that we don't have to pay that are just doing it because they really enjoy the game.
Yeah, exactly. And even then, and I think you might get better content as a result, like overall, for
Well,
in terms of like cosmetic stuff.
yeah, well, and at the very least, your community is going to be interested in the content that you have because they're the ones that came up with it, you know,
Right.
so they
Right.
can't complain going, we don't like this. You're the ones who designed it. Yeah, and
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good point.
Well, isn't there a dev post that came out about ship customization and stuff like that too?
Yeah, so there was a dev post about that. I think mostly it was Ben Lesnick talking about it. Well, the big part of it that people are really concerned with is what people call the min maxers, right? Who are solely concerned with having the absolute top of the line, spaceship with the top of the line weapons that can just win in a dogfight every time or something like that. And it's hard for the CIG because they're trying to explain, well, we can't just make an MMO that does that. That isn't going to function. Like that's going to get really old really fast, and you're going to see, the people who have high skill sets survive and keep playing the game, whereas other people who want to do other stuff are just going to get, thrown out. So that's why they need to have different variants with different modules and that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and it's always dumb because this expectation of a rock, paper, scissors always mechanic for most
Right.
MMOs, where it's, I'm a mage, so I have to be at a range and stun and run away, and I'm a melee, I have to run up close and hit him with my big weapon and all that junk. Whereas for this, it's gonna be, we could all have the same ship, even if they want us to have it, but, with the amount of customization they're wanting to go, it's very different for each ship. Like might have a ship with more armor, you might have a ship that's faster, you might have a ship with different weapons entirely. You might be a worse pilot too because you chose a ship with less maneuverability for more armor, etc.
Right. And I think it's good. They need to have variety, and it sounds like what they're more focused on is having, just different roles for different ships. And I think that's really going to be important to the success of the game, because you're going to have people who just want to help other people out, like the repair ship that just got greenlit because we nailed the 59 million funding goal. And so that would be fun. I think that'd be fun. I'd be interested in doing that sometimes, just flying around, helping people out, like repairing their ships for them and stuff. And so you have a ship, and it's still going to have weapons, and you're still going to have to fight with it, but you're giving up the ability to be a pure, dogfighter or whatever to help other people.
Yeah, and I think with the amount of customization, even if you go with the ship that's not meant for a specific role initially, you could customize it to be pretty decent at whatever role. I think he made the point that a freelancer is never going to be a Hornet, but you can make it a very good combat ship anyway.
Right,
So
right. It from what I've seen and what they've described, I would agree with that statement. That seems to be the case.
I would be like, I wonder what type of pimped out freelancer you could get if you focus straight on
Oh
combat.
man,
Well,
I'd
like,
have to look at the hard points on it.
it's got some big guns on the side there, man. It's kind of a scary ship if all of a sudden it's super combat oriented and it's fairly decent size too.
Maybe turn it into a really good like anti-freighter ship or something where it just chews up constellations.
That'd be really cool. Yeah. Well, and if it's got the shields to take the hits back, why not?
Right, right. Then you got to give them the middle finger while you're flying past them.
It's not a Mustang commercial. I mean, come on.
Was it Cutlass? Was that the Cutlass
Oh,
commercial,
I'm
or was it
sorry,
the?
Cutlass
It
commercial.
was
I
Cutlass. Yeah,
apologize.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll never live that one down.
No, yeah.
Well, the other cool thing about the development life cycle, especially like I like how open they are about it. Like for example, there was the FPS team doing the Ask Me Anything on Reddit this week,
Right.
which was pretty sweet. I know you commented on that. I am one
hmm
of those lurkers who don't bother with a Reddit. Uh,
Yeah, I'm mostly a lurker, but every once in a while I'll get inspired and talk on there a little bit. And yeah, I asked them about whether or not when you board ships you'll be able to like destroy internal systems of the ship, like maybe the engines or the artificial gravity controls, or like a turret or something like that. And they said that yeah, you'd be able to do that. You won't be able to like destroy walls really because there's solid metal in the ships, and that's kind of unrealistic to like model every little part of the ship to do it. But there will be specific components that you can destroy to like mess with the ship's functionality from the inside, which I think is awesome.
well, and one of the really sweet things about that too is you can have a guy sneak aboard. Like they were talking, like let's say you're infiltration specialist and like you're in this derelict freighter and you hide in one of the cargo containers, and if they don't bother checking they bring you aboard their ship and all of a sudden you can run around killing people and turning off the engines and the gravity and all this stuff.
Right. And I wouldn't be surprised to see stuff where like, you have a stealthed ship or like a really stealthy ship, like they have the stealthy Hornet, for example, and you're like hiding behind an asteroid and like a big old ship comes by and you just, attach to it without anybody really seeing it, kind of Millennium Falcon style when they get behind the bridge of a Star Destroyer and attach to the back of it, so they can't see them. You get in the ship and maybe steal a few things or kill a few people or something and then fly off.
Well, yeah, that's why you have ship security too, is specifically for jerks like that do that type of thing.
And I will be one of those
And
jerks.
yeah, well, I hope your stealthy Hornet gets blown up because you deserve it. Well, one of
But yeah,
the
there was. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say there's a lot of other good stuff in there too, but I'm sure that's where you were going.
Well, yeah, and what I was most interested in was, aside from that mechanic, they were talking about the cover and how the cover system was going to work, where you would
Mm.
have, it wasn't going to be like Rainbow Six or like Star Wars: The Old Republic, where you're forced into a specific location, but you would still have that real cover mechanic where you could go and lean against a wall and look around a corner and that type of thing. I think
Yeah,
that
that was encouraging.
Yeah, I'll have to see how it comes into gameplay and like if it's intuitive or blocky or how it is, because I've had some games where I really like the cover mechanic and other games where it's just this is no fun at all.
Right. I mean, and it's weird. I haven't really played a lot of first-person shooters with cover mechanics, just a few, and for the most part, they're usually okay, but not great. But from what they were saying, I'm a little more optimistic. I think it's going to be a little more interesting and a little more fluid, because the other usually they're really clunky.
Well,
It's like get here and hit a button and
yeah,
wait.
wait, peer around a corner with your camera, but your face actually doesn't move, and you just somehow you can
Right.
see around that corner. Yeah,
Right. It's like no, you magically go into third person and can see everything. It's like, well,
yeah,
that's kind of dumb.
yeah. What I really am going to look forward to is finally we'll have a shooter where people won't just run around and do Twitch gaming and headshots and all that stuff, because with the death of a spaceman mechanic, you're dead, if you die too many times.
Right. There really is a disincentive to just run around guns blazing.
Well, I mean, it doesn't make any sense for you to do that either. It's like in the real world, you'd never see somebody do like a jump 360 no scope unless you're an Ottawa Sergeant at Arms or something.
Oh yeah, God, that guy.
Like that guy, yeah.
Yeah, for people who don't know, I want to describe that real quick. So the sergeant at arms who killed that guy who ran into the Canadian Parliament building. Apparently, what he did was he heard that there was a guy in there with a gun, grabbed his gun, ran out into the hall. The guy was at the other end of the hall behind a pillar, and at the other end of that hall was the Canadian police, and they told this guy who was in the middle of them basically that the guy was behind that pillar. So what does he do? He just runs at the pillar, jumps, shoots the guy while in air, and kills him. And like freaking action movie style. So it's pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll offer him a movie rights or something and like dosy it up, and it'll be like Bruce Willis or something as the Sergeant at
There you go.
Arms of Canada, and
And
you
the
know,
dude was old. He was like late 60s
well,
or something like
That's
that.
like Bruce Willis's age now.
Well, yeah, yeah. He's
I
getting
mean,
up there.
yeah, he doesn't even need to like act above his age or wear makeup. He could just show up on set. Expendables 4. That'll be it.
There you go. Yeah. The perfect setup for that movie.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Oh man.
Well, and there's also the competitive scene that we're talking about. That sounds kind of interesting that they're actually going to have a mechanic where you can have, tournaments or that type of thing going on where all of a sudden you've got, a real competitive focus and people doing stuff.
Yeah, I was really personally pleased when the first time they ever really talked about it that I can remember was at CitizenCon, and Sandy mentioned that they're going to be doing esports. So I'm really happy about that as someone who's been, very into esports for a long time. Halo, Counter Strike, StarCraft, League of Legends. I've been into those scenes at one point or another. Um, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to the fact that they're going to be implementing stuff to support that. One of the first things they're really going to need is spectator modes. That's one of the biggest
Well,
musts. But
even before that, lobbies.
well,
Yeah,
yes, we need lobbies desperately. You
lobbies, and
can't
then with
really.
lobbies, the spectator mode.
Yeah, you can't really set up matches without lobbies. So
Yeah. Well, and hopefully it will get to the point too where you can have an entire like tournament bracket set up, or you could also have, let's say, you've got an arena commander, so nobody has to worry about losing their ships or anything, and you have a lot of really intense battles and however it can so. I mean, hopefully there's going to be a good variety of the types of competitive gameplay that you can have too, kind of like they've got now, but even more.
yeah, I mean, I would imagine. I remember them saying they're going to have multiple game modes in the FPS when it comes out. And I'm trying to remember what those were off the top of my head, but I can't. But we should have a couple of really cool ones, like defend and attack, where one team's on defense, one
Mhm.
team's on offense,
Well,
that kind of thing.
I'm assuming it's going to have a lot of the standard ones, like team deathmatch, free for all, squad battle versus squad battle,
Right.
um, maybe a plant the flag type deal too. Who knows?
Right. Yeah. And that's great. That'll be awesome. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, and with that too, I know in the last one they were talking about some of the items and stuff like that that's going to be coming out eventually, like different types of helmets, different types of armor, different types of weapons, etc. So it'll be interesting when the FPS comes out, if they'll not only have a variety of roles and a variety of matches and types like that, but also a variety of equipment that you can then equip.
Right, right. And it sounds like it's going to be highly customizable. Like, you'll be able to carry different, you know, weapons and sidearms, different types of armor, like you said, different helmets. And there's even crazy weird guns like a microwave gun and some other
Yeah.
interesting stuff that I've seen. So it should be really, really cool.
So how
I,
long do you think it's going to be before we run into somebody who's wearing like a cowboy hat and just two sidearms running around? If,
yeah,
it'll be
probably
like
not
batch
long.
three, batch
Yeah.
three. As soon as somebody
Oh,
figures out how to equip it, boom,
you might have
done.
just convinced me to do it.
Oh man.
That's what you
every
get.
every game, every game.
Every day,
There's
yeah.
always one.
I'm just gonna run around with my knife like I used to do in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and just run around and knife people because you could. It was totally broken, and you were super fast.
I hope they don't give you perks that like that. That like in one sense I hope they kind of do, but the other sense I'm like, no, just make it straight up skill based without perks.
Yeah, I don't see them doing any perks or anything like that. That just does not seem like their MO. When they said what games that they were going to try and base this on, they basically said Arma 3, Rainbow Six, Counter-Strike. So none of those games have anything resembling perks.
Well, and the really cool thing about Rainbow Six, I played a lot of Rainbow Six, was that you could set up your fights ahead of time. Like, let's say you're going into a room and okay, we're gonna put a breaching charge here. Well, that breaching charge goes in. After that goes off, these two guys are gonna go into the room. Then the other two guys on your team are gonna jump down from the roof and crash through the windows on, lines. So we're attacking the room at the same time from two different angles, that type of thing.
Right.
So
That
hopefully
that
there's
was
an
really
element of
cool.
that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they just relied on the players to handle that, just to, learn the maps and then develop your strategies from there. But
Well,
I would
yeah.
I would like to have like breaching charges and stuff like that. I think that'd be really cool.
Well, have you done any spacewalking yet in the Arena Commander?
No, I have not.
Oh man, it is obscenely slow. Like you're like, and it makes total sense because if you think about it, your feet are magnetized, so you pick up one magnet off the deck and you put it down, and you pick up the other one and you put it down. So it's not like a normal run. It's a kind of a slow wobble along. But at the same time, that would be kind of cool if you can like get on top of a Bengal carrier and just walk along the deck.
Yeah,
You know, it'd be pretty sweet.
that would be really fun. And I mean, I would assume you'd be like impossible to detect on radar, so you could just kind of cruise around on this thing until you got shot off of it accidentally, or you got bored, I guess.
Well, that's one of those things is like they're actually talking about putting in enough system control that you can like power down your ship and make yourself harder to detect. So I wonder if there's going to be like suits and stuff that you can also wear that are stealth suits that help you not get detected when you're trying to do a boarding action and that type of thing as well.
Oh, that would be cool. Cause yeah, I mean, like by default, I would assume you most likely want your suit to broadcast so you can get rescued. You know,
Right.
but you're right. But there are times where you would really want
It's like
to be in that suit and not be detected.
I'm surrounded by Vandal right now and none of my friends are here. Let's
Yeah.
just turn this
Let's
beacon
just
off.
right. Let's turn
Yeah.
off everything that isn't heat and oxygen right now, and
Yeah.
just just
Oh
wait this
man.
out.
That
Let's
would
go down to the pub, get a pint, and wait this out.
Meanwhile, you're like texting your friends in real life, help me, come rescue me. Dude, I'm on a
Hi.
date. I don't care. I'm stranded in the middle of Vandal space and there's a fleet around me.
You get over here right now.
I don't want to die again. I lost my last character this way,
And stop going to goddamn Vandal space.
but I wanna.
I know. You know, that reminds me, something interesting that kind of came out during the 10 for the chairman when he was asked if there was going to be like discoverable stuff about the Vandu society and culture, and he said, "Yeah, you know, in the persistent universe, there's going to be that kind of stuff." I mean, did you see that?
Yeah, it was actually really interesting because he wasn't saying that it was going to be part of Squadron 42 itself. It wasn't going to be like one of the main mechanics or main goals of Squadron 42, but it definitely sounded like the persistent universe is, if you want to go that route, we'll have tons of clues and you can kind of figure it out.
Right. I think that's really cool. I mean, that really gives you incentive to do like recon and, you know, like covert
Exploration,
ops.
yeah.
Yeah, covert ops into Vandal space instead of just flying into Vandal space, guns blazing.
Well,
And
I kind of want to see if there's going to be a mechanic of like you can manipulate the Vandal. Like, oh,
oh,
we're gonna like roll a bunch of cargo ships through this sector of space and like make it really appetizing for the Vandal, and then they start raiding that sector more and more. That type of thing.
yeah, that would be really cool. I mean, I would think that stuff like that is going to happen because it, you know, based on what I've heard Chris Roberts talk about how he imagines the economies of the planets and systems to work. I mean, military actions have to follow as well. Like there's no way you can't both they go hand in hand,
Yeah.
right? So there has to be some kind of mechanic with that, I would think.
Well,
That's a
and
really good point.
it, I don't know. I like the more I find out, the more I'm like, oh man, there's stuff that you can really exploit if you're smart and think about what you're doing and what the consequences are going to be. Like, for example, he wants to put in destructible terrain, and I think that's even something that they've got in with an upcoming version of Arena Commander, is those asteroids that you see in Broken Moon and so forth. You can blow them up and then they'll create more chunks that move and all that stuff.
Yeah, I he mentioned that in the 10 for the chairman. He said that in the version he's playing, there are some asteroids that are already destructible, and I think that'll be really interesting. You know, you could poke holes into asteroids to hide even further into them. You know, make kind of like a
Mm.
little, well in the asteroid for your ship, or that kind of thing. So that
well
that is super interesting.
well, at that same time, it's like, oh, we're worried about being ambushed and there's a bunch of asteroids over there. Well, let's just hang back here and shoot a bunch until
Right.
they're all gone. And oh, look, there was a fleet hiding there. Or oh, look, all those asteroids hit the fleet that was hiding there and blew it up or whatever.
Right. That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. There's a lot of good counterplay there too.
Well, and along with that, I mean, we've talked about it a bit already, is the healing and supply roles that
Right.
you're going to have in space and ground. So, like, if you've got that type of scenario, you can, have your heavy hitters go in while your healing and supply hang back, and then they can run away, or you can have your healing and supply ships hide out in an asteroid field and only have your combat ships going out.
Right.
It's that's pretty cool, and I'll be interested to see for the FPS module the roles that they have for those two. Like, are you going to have an ammo guy, a support specialist, or are you going to have a medic?
Right, and it sounded like they were gonna have things kind of like that, but they didn't give a lot of specifics.
What I would
So,
love is if there's like you could make a really robust medic class where it's like, okay, this guy's arm's blown off, I need to stop the bleeding, I need to give him, some adrenaline so he doesn't pass out, that type of thing. Whereas, oh, he's got a bullet hole, now I need to, remove the bullet and, put a cauterizing agent and all this stuff. You could, so like there's different treatments rather than just I strike him with the paddle and he's magically better, or there's, green plus signs, you could make a really robust medic class that way. And same with support, like different types of ammo you need to bring for the different types of guns in your
right.
team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suspect it's going to be something like that. I mean, especially with based on how they've talked about implementing like mining and like finding jump points where they're going to be like mini games. You know, I would imagine that being a medic or being a supply guy is going to resemble that in some way. Maybe not a supply guy. Maybe a supply guy, you just got to be smart enough to bring the right types of ammo and stuff. But for a medic, I would imagine there's going to be some kind of mini game for you to actually, like you said, if they got their arm shot off, well, you got to stop the bleeding. Not, oh, you got shot in the head. Here, let me grab some paddles and zap you back to life. Like,
No, here's an aspirin.
yeah, here's an aspirin. Take some pills.
I'm bleeding from 12 bullet wounds. Here's an aspirin. You're
Right.
okay.
You're good to go, soldier.
Yeah, back in the fight. Um, well, and like another thing they were talking about with that whole mechanic too is you're going to have a day and night cycle, at least with Squadron 42, and I assume eventually in the persistent universe. So I wonder then, are you going to have the day and night cycle affect the tournament battles? Like, oh, let's say we have the tournament at 6 p.m. Central Time. Well, is the day night cycle of Star Citizen going to be during that, or is it going to be much faster? What's the pace of the day night cycle?
Yeah, when I heard him talking about this, I thought it was cool for Squadron 42, and I didn't know how I felt about it for the rest of the game, just because it's a global game,
Right.
and you don't want to feel limited because I got home from work,
And
and
it's
oh
always
man,
dark, yeah.
it's night, or yeah, that would not be fun.
So
That would be frustrating.
in that respect, then they'll probably have to speed it up so that, like, 24 minutes is 24 hours, or however they want to do it, you know.
Right. And but part of me just kind of wonders, like, does it even matter when you're spending most of your time in space? Like on the planets I can understand it, where sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's light. But in space, like,
Well,
who
it
gives
it,
a
it depends
you
on
know.
how in depth they're going with immersion, because I assume your, pilots get tired and your crew gets tired and all that. So
Right.
if, you can't just have them doing their tasks 24/7 without any rest or without eating anything and so forth if you're going for a real immersive experience. And
Right.
that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they deal with it. It's there's no like perfect solution to it, but I I have I think they'll do fine with it. I think they'll figure something out that works for them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that's pretty much a lot of what was talked about, especially this week. We'll have to wait and see for the review, sorry, not the review, but the reveal of the FPS module at PAX this weekend. And
Right.
just to, get a bunch of these questions hopefully answered. What usually ends up happening, though, is it just raises even more questions after they announce something. Everybody's like, whoa, what about this? So.
Right, right. Yeah, I'll be really curious to see how that all goes. Just would like to randomly throw in, while we were talking, I looked up the stats on the 300 series ships, and all of them have the exact same amount of maneuvering thrusters. So the only difference is in the factory engines and the factory power plants and the
Interesting.
shields.
Hmm.
So
Well,
in
then
terms of that kind of stuff.
they could have different models of thrusters on them because I assume they're the same number, but they don't probably list the model type, right?
They do, and they are the same.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Well, and
Yeah,
like
so
in general, when you're dealing with a ship type, then you're gonna have an idea of how it handles, even if they do change up some of the stuff on it. So, like, I know a 300i is not gonna be as maneuverable traditionally as a Hornet, for example.
right, exactly. And I felt like they handled pretty much the same, and I think they meant the 325A to be a little more maneuverable, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they either changed the stats or just changed somehow how the maneuvering works. We'll see. Maybe they
Okay.
changed the placement of them,
Yeah.
the thrusters, that is.
That would be interesting, like moving forward, back, or more towards the middle, whatever.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, I know.
Because I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say they're beholden to the physics of those thrusters with
Yeah.
the way they made this game. So
Yeah. Make them a little bigger. I'll do more output. However, it'll be
yeah, yeah.
it will be interesting to see how they balance it. Well, and speaking of flight sims in general, actually, this week, and I want to say yesterday or the day before, um, good old games, GOG.com, actually released X-Wing and TIE Fighter, which was a pretty big deal,
Yeah.
especially for people like me that played a ton of X-Wing and TIE Fighter back in the day.
Right.
I actually did buy them. I haven't been able to play either one yet, but I'll try and get them working and then maybe do some streaming of X-Wing.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It would be. Oh, I wish we could play it co-op over the internet. I wish they would have like added that functionality, but I don't.
That's
I
like
don't think they
a
can.
huge amount of functionality to add
It
to
is.
X-Wing. I
Oh,
mean,
it is. It
wow.
totally is. It's totally a pipe dream. But yeah, I'll get those soon. And I'll get those going too, and maybe we'll do some streaming.
Well, I think those games initially came out in like 93 and 94 or something like that. So it's been, oh my God, 20 years.
Yeah, well, they ran on my old Pentium 75, so
Yeah.
it's. I mean, and we got that in 95 or 96. So they're they're almost 20-year-old. They might be 20-year-old. It might be the 20-year anniversary is why they're putting them out.
Well, I think last year was the 20, or like earlier in the year was the 20-year anniversary of TIE Fighter. So yeah, probably.
Yep.
Um, that's pretty cool though. I'm glad that like they're coming out with that because if anything, it helps Star Citizen out too because it makes people go, "Oh man, if only they'd come out with a new flight sim." And then, "Oh, there is one? Okay."
Right.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah. Exactly.
and even if that doesn't help out, in the worst case, I get to play X-Wing and TIE Fighter, and that's all I really care about. It's like, until Star Citizen's fully fleshed out, I'm gonna keep playing X-Wing and TIE Fighter now.
I mean, they're just great games. They're
Yeah.
just a lot of fun. There's a ton of versatility to them.
Well,
The
and
storylines are great.
what's sad is I discovered I still own both of the strategy guides from TIE Fighter and X-Wing. Like I still had both the books
Oh
in,
man.
yeah. And incidentally, they come with like a PDF version, but it's still
Right.
different.
Yeah, I might have my X-Wing one. I'd have to look. We might have thrown it out when we moved all those years ago, but it might still be there. But one thing I am hoping, since they have redone these games and released them for modern systems, is that they'll do some other Star Wars games, maybe Star Wars Rebellion.
Rebellion, X-Wing Alliance, yeah.
Oh my God.
That X-Wing Alliance and Rebellion would be the two I'd want the most because X-Wing
Yes.
Alliance they fixed a lot of the issues with X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I'm sure they'll
Right.
release X-Wing versus TIE Fighter.
Hmm.
But X-Wing Alliance they fixed a lot of issues. They also added in the transport mechanic, so you could fly around in transports, as well as you could add in capital ships to your matches and fight with those too. So.
Right. And if you had the right mods, you could actually fly the capital ships.
Yeah, I remember flying an SST going, this is ridiculous. This is pointless. I'm not even doing anything. It turns super slow, and like you just set your turrets to auto fire and they just shoot and you just sit
Yep.
there and watch it. It's so boring.
It really was.
The Krellian Corvette was fun to fly though. The CR-90, that
Yeah.
was a good time.
There were a few of them that were pretty fun to fly, and there were some of them that were kind of overpowered with like you could set all your weapons forward and just fire them, like the assault frigates.
Oh yeah.
You could
Yeah.
just they had so many weapons that you could just set forward and fire in a straight line.
It's
Like you
like
could actually go toe to toe with like star destroyers with it. You're like, this isn't right.
especially if you like fly behind it and you shoot it from behind where it's only got like one or two guns that can shoot at you.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. It was a
This
fun little mod.
this isn't right. I'll take it though. Yeah. Well, other than
Uh,
gaming, there have been a lot of other really cool announcements. One thing that we totally spaced on and forgot to talk about that was announced last week was the DC Universe movies that were coming out. I
right.
think they announced like 9 million different films or something coming
Yeah,
out. It
it was
was a
around
lot.
that.
Yeah. It's like they're redoing Green Lantern. They've got the
Thank God.
Justice League movie that everybody knew was coming, but they officially announced it.
Right.
Wonder Woman movie, which will be cool because let's face it, there have not been a lot of female superhero movies made that were
No.
strictly about female superheroes,
Right.
unless they were like animated.
Yes.
The Flash movie, that one's the one I'm most excited about, but it depends on how they deal with it because the Flash is one of
Well,
my like favorite superheroes, but like he's always weirded out, so they like never do him quite the right amount of justice.
yeah, I haven't actually watched the Flash TV show that's out in America right now, and I'm wondering how they're gonna mash those two up. Like, is this like, are they completely separate, or
It's
I
completely
have no idea.
separate. From
Oh,
what
okay.
I've read, it sounds like the DC TV show universe, which right now is like Arrow, Flash, and Gotham, are considered completely different entities from the DC movie universe, which is, Superman, Batman, the Justice League, Wonder Woman, Flash. I think there might even be doing an Aquaman movie, which I know Aquaman gets a lot of guff, but quite frankly, he's kind of a badass character considering like three-quarters of the world is at his disposal and he can do anything he wants with it.
Right. No, it's true. He gets a lot of he gets a lot of, you know, disdain for being underpowered, so to speak, but he's still arguably more powerful than like, what is it? Hawkeye is the DC Arthur that's in Justice League?
No, that's
Is that the
Green
Marvel
Arrow.
one?
You're
Oh,
thinking
Green
Green Arrow.
Arrow.
Hawkeye
Oh,
is
okay.
Marvel, I believe. Yeah,
Hawkeye is Marvel.
yeah.
Ugh, I have a hard time keeping
It
those
doesn't matter. They're all
because they're like
archers.
they're so
Yeah.
worthless. I mean, what?
Oh,
uh,
ouch.
yeah.
Well, like
They
the thing about the only thing I think that more people don't like Aquaman is he's just not cool. You know,
yeah.
Superman can fly into space and shoot laser beams from his eyes and all that stuff, even though he's completely white bread, he still has cool powers that people want.
Right.
Whereas
Well,
Aquaman is like, I talk to fish. Yeah,
I'm trying to have you was did you ever watch Entourage?
yeah. That I did watch Entourage with
Didn't
Vince was
yeah,
Aquaman or something in
yeah,
that.
he was
Yeah.
Aquaman, like, and they actually I thought did a good job of like making it look cool.
Well,
Like
it
he
was
wore a suit
supposedly
and
a James Cameron film, if I recall, in that show.
oh, that's right. That
Yeah.
was.
So, it's a
That's
James Cameron
ridiculous.
Aquaman. You know what'd
So
be awesome?
absurd.
You know what'd be really awesome? They get James Cameron to direct Aquaman and they hire the guy who played Vince in Entourage to be
Oh man,
Aquaman. It would be
that
like
would be
a really meta moment and would make my day alone.
that
That
would be amazing.
that alone would be reason enough to watch it.
Oh, I would watch that in a heartbeat. There would be no stopping me from getting to the theater on that one.
Well, it's like every time I try and pretend like I'm not going to go see something, like I'm not going to watch Hobbit 2, I went to the theater. Every time I try and pretend I'm not going to go and see one of these superhero films, it's like, Mike, let's be honest, you're going to go
Right.
see it. There's,
Right,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm personally just because I've always been a Marvel kid, I'm more interested in all the Marvel stuff. Particularly the most interesting thing to me was supposedly Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange.
yeah,
I
I heard
mean,
that.
that is ideal for Doctor Strange. That
Yeah,
would be amazing.
well, he's such a good actor. It's pretty much like anything you put him in, he's going to do a good job at. So like, I don't know. You think that's going to be like an end of the Avengers 2 Age of Ultron cameo, like Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange in the end cutscene or whatever?
Oh, uh, I don't think they've worked out the details with him in terms of his contract enough to do that. Because when does Age of Ultron come out? Next year?
Coming up pretty soon, I think. If probably like summer next year. They like to release those in the summer so they get a ton of more people.
Yeah, I mean the only way I could see it happening is if he's in the after credits short that they always do at the end. You know what
Well,
I mean?
yeah, for sure. It's gonna be one of those after credit moments. That's what they always like to do. Looks
Right.
like 2015 is, according to IMDb, is when it's planned to release. So
Okay.
May of 2015.
Yeah. I don't know, and it would be cool. It would obviously get a lot of internet buzz if they did that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's like, hey, and it'll be released on YouTube with one of those like shaky cams and like you'll barely be able to see anything, but it'll be like, you know, you can just kind of totally make out Benedict Cumberbatch, and then there's a big scream from the audience of people going, "Yay!" Just like all the other ones.
Yeah, yeah. I did definitely like the Guardians of the Galaxy one. That was quite funny.
Oh yeah. Well, and they had the Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch announced in that one, and they're in Age of Ultron, so
Yeah, yeah, that'll be really interesting. Um, those could end up. I would. I mean, it looked like they were like on the bad guy side, right, with
yeah.
Ultron,
But
but they should get converted, I think, because
that,
they do in the
uh, yeah.
comics. But
I never like trust sides that you see in trailers because it's always like, oh, they switch back and forth left and right, and
right,
it's the nature of comics.
it's true.
Hmm.
Yeah, the other movie that I'm really really looking forward to that comes out next week is Interstellar, the Christopher Nolan science fiction movie.
So that one like was kind of weird. I watched the trailer and it's got Matthew McConaughey in it as like a engineer or something that owns a farm, and like he has a family, and like humanity is dying out because we've messed up the Earth, which, oh, spoiler alert, we're totally doing now. Um, and so they're gonna like go up into a wormhole and then like try and save humanity that way, and it's kind of like I don't get how you're gonna save humanity sending 5 people through a wormhole.
Yeah,
Unless they're like going
I'm
back in time or something.
well, it depends on how they. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to go with, uh, you know, how our current understanding of physics, meaning, okay, well, but then it doesn't really make sense. Well, okay, so it depends. So okay, so if you think about it, like we only have like 200 years till the Earth, is going to be unsustainable for humans, more or less, for as big of a population as it has. So okay, we send somebody faster than light to a star system that's 10 light years away. Well, Earth time is going to pass faster than the people that are going to that planet. So when they come back, everybody they know and love is going to be dead because it's been like 100 years or whatever on Earth, because time travels much slower for them since they're moving at, speeds of light, right? So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that, because in the trailers they say, you're not going to see your daughter again, and I presume that's because so much time is gonna pass on Earth that she'll be dead. She'll be just
Right.
too old.
Yeah.
So, and it reminds me briefly of a great anime called Gunbuster, where they
Mhm.
deal with that, with the speed of light stuff and how it affects time and relativity. That's what I'm looking for. God,
I was
Jesus.
I was just gonna let you keep going because
Yeah,
you're the physics expert. I'm just gonna let him talk.
expert.
He'll get to it.
Yeah. No, yeah.
I
So
could
I
throw
mean,
out random
it'll be
words that
interesting.
I've heard of physics, and either make me look really bad or really good if I get lucky. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, so I'm really excited for it. I'm gonna go see it in theaters, um, and I will definitely have a review of it ready when we
All
have the
right.
next flight deck.
I could lie and say I'll go see it in theaters, but it really comes down to how bored I am that day and like, if there's anything else to do, and then I'll go see it.
Yeah,
It I don't know. I'll probably wait till it comes out on Netflix or something and watch it then.
there you go.
Unless you come back and you're like, "Oh, it's the best movie ever," and then I'll probably go see it.
It's, I mean, if it's the next 2001: A Space Odyssey, then yes. But otherwise, if it's just a decent sci-fi flick, I'll just be like, yeah, it was all right.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, and then
Well,
later this
yeah,
week we've got PAX coming up, so I think it's going
right.
to be at like 3 a.m. Central Time. So, yikes.
Yeah, there's no way I'm getting up for that.
Yeah, we'll do is we'll probably do a review after the fact of whatever the stream was that they put up. So
Yeah,
we'll still watch it and review it, just not in real time.
right. Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much every topic we wanted to cover this week. So we'll see you guys next time on the flight deck.
Peace.